Okay, it's recording now. Okay. All right. If you could all mute yourselves, please. Thank you. All right, ready? Okay, hey guys, my name is Genevieve Bernillo, and this is my persuasive speech. If burnout was a topic that needed research, if it was real or not, then students going to school during a pandemic is the perfect evidence to prove it. So many students go through so much stress and work and are overloaded with life in general, but is everyone taking the time to really take care of themselves mentally, emotionally, and physically? Mental health not only affects how you think, how you feel, but also how you strive in life. Today, I wanted to shed some light on why taking care of your mental health is important. College students will 100% agree with me that burnout is real and can affect someone massively if they don't take the precautions to take care of themselves mentally, and this is something that needs to be talked about more and addressed to help college kids all over the world and the future generations. First, I will talk about why mental health is important. Second, I will talk about my personal experience with self-care and how I go about taking care of myself up there. And finally, I will emphasize different ways on how to help your mental health. Mental health is definitely something to worry about and attend to. Students especially push themselves to their limits and even more, and then don't make time for themselves. This is important because your mental health is part of you, and when you take on more than you can actually do, and you don't give yourself time to recover or heal, eventually you power down, you break down, and it gets really messy. If mentally you aren't stable to do work, how is that healthy? If you keep pushing yourself, eventually you're just going to explode, whether that is mental breakdown, being extremely overwhelmed, or some people actually go into depressive states. It is very easy to not take the time for yourself and mess yourself up mentally, and a major path that you might find yourself on is burnout. I never fully believed burnout was real until it started to hit me. Last semester was probably one of my strongest semesters at Chabot College. I think since I pushed myself over the limits last semester, the burnout really started to kick in for me. As a student taking back-to-back 18 plus credit semesters, I can 100% say that burnout is real. Now, how has this taken a toll on my mental health? Ever since the beginning of this semester, I've been so unmotivated. As a full-time student, I dedicate my life to Zoom calls, studying, and everything school. Not only have I been so unmotivated, but I find myself starting to not care if I miss an assignment or if I don't study for a quiz. Instead of doing schoolwork, I would rather waste my whole day scrolling through social media or listening to music. Anything but schoolwork. I have always been aware of my mental health with trying out different hobbies to see what is therapeutic to me, to just try and take my mind off of reality. Whether it was having pamper days on myself or cooking or baking, cooking or baking, taking that time away from my phone or school or technology has helped me tremendously. One thing I definitely want to talk about is pushing yourself over your limit, but then it paying off in the end. For example, last semester I was taking a math class and I killed myself over this class. I needed to pass with a great grade, not a good grade, a great grade. And for this class was probably the most studying I've done for a class that I have taken. During finals week, my routine was to study until 4 to 5 a.m. and wake up at 8 a.m. to study again, eat, sleep, and repeat. I ended up coming out of that class with an A+, and there's this saying where it goes, it's worth it in the end. And I think that is true to a certain extent. Going through the motions of losing so much sleep really messes you up, and it is nice to see how hard your work pays off. But now looking back, I just look at it and think if I managed my time better, then I didn't have to stay up till however late in the morning. So really, yes, pushing yourself and being motivated is great, but when you push yourself on top of performing bad habits, it really messes you up mentally. And by the time you want to recover, how many weeks later the new semester starts back up? This is why it's important to continually and consistently take care of yourself. There are so many ways on how to improve your mental health, and this doesn't just happen overnight. I believe that students especially need days for themselves, whether it is exercising or binge watching your favorite Netflix series, anything to take your mind off what stresses you out or whatever keeps you occupied from reality. A lot of people find cleaning therapeutic, but it really depends on the person. I know people that just like to be outside and enjoy nature. Taking care of yourself really means taking breaks while studying and actually getting a good amount of sleep, socializing with your friends, etc. Again, it's going to be different for everyone. A lot of people like me have turned to social media for entertainment or just to be in the know of what's going on in the world. Everyone copes differently, which is 1,000% okay. Some people have just kept it pushing their whole lives and they don't know how to relax and take time for themselves. Find hobbies. Talk to your loved ones and friends, especially in a hard time like this. Try new things. Whether it is sitting in silence away from your phone for 15 minutes every morning or going for a run. Do what you need to do to just de-stress and relieve yourself. Your mental state of mind is way more important than you think. In conclusion, being cooped up at home during this pandemic has taken a toll on everyone in different ways. But now is the time to explore and find new things we enjoy to keep us all sane. What's most important is that you continue to take time for yourself. Thank you.
How many of you have experienced biased judgments due to your race? Racism and hate crimes have always been a problem within the United States. Recent events have shown that we need to spread awareness on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders movement. Asian Americans are continuing to be attacked and feared for their lives due to society's racist beliefs. It is time that our generation takes a stand and fights for what is right. We have the power to end racism and teach our children equality for all. First, I will talk about some of the recent attacks on Asian Americans. Second, I will go into detail about what the root cause of racism is. And finally, I will talk about the possible solutions to end Asian hate. According to Suzanne Nguyen from NPR.org, she says, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the U.S. reported nearly 3,800 instances of discrimination against Asians in the past year. The actual number could be higher. One attack was against an elderly woman named Zhao Zhenzi. She was punched in the face by a white man here in San Francisco. She was able to defend herself by smacking her attacker with a board. Shockingly, the attacker is the one who left the scene on a stretcher. Zhao fought back for herself, and she is now donating nearly $1 million to the AAPI movement. In addition, there was also an attack on a 36-year-old Asian man in Chinatown, New York. The man was stabbed in the back with an 8-inch knife. The attacker was charged with second-degree attempted murder as a hate crime, and the attacker told the police that the reason he stabbed the victim was because he didn't like the way he looked at him. Another attack was a mass shooting at 3 different spas in Atlanta. There were 8 people killed, and 6 of them were Asian women. What's even worse about this case is that the police dismissed the attacker of committing a hate crime, and the officer even said that this attack was a reaction to a bad day. This killer targeted these poor women who are mothers, daughters, sisters, and wives. There have been many violent and deadly attacks this past year because of anti-Asian hate. There are many others who have lost their lives due to these racist beliefs. Killing or harming somebody because of their race is never okay. Asian Americans should not have to fear for their lives while walking in their own neighborhood, going on a walk, going to work, etc. There are many different causes of racism. In my opinion, racism is something that is taught. It is a belief that one race is superior to the other. Although I also believe that people can form opinions of their own and disregard the teachings that they learned as a kid. Racial prejudice began many generations before us. The Civil War freed slaves, however, it did not free America from racist thoughts and beliefs and actions. Some people say that the cause of racism towards Asian Americans started due to the pandemic that we are currently living in. Apparently to racists, it makes sense that since the first COVID case was in Wuhan, China, it is every Asian's fault that the world is fighting a virus, which doesn't make sense. During the start of the pandemic, people were commenting racial slurs to Asians like Kung Flu and Chinese virus, etc. People with these horrible beliefs don't realize that racism is also a pandemic America is currently fighting. Another cause of racism towards Asian Americans is having presidents like Donald Trump. The website Columbia Spectator states, due to anti-Asian rhetoric in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, hate crimes rose by 150% in 2020, as leaders like former President Donald Trump blamed the spread of the virus on China. Trump was actually one of the first to call the coronavirus. It's funny how the people who are blaming Asians for the pandemic are the same people who refuse to wear masks and social distance. There are many causes of racism in America. The reason that Asian hate has been increasing is because of the coronavirus, and people love to find others to blame for their problems. The other reason for the attacks on Asians is because of leaders like Trump, who spread their racist beliefs throughout the country and do nothing to help stop or control the pandemic. Although it is nearly impossible to end racism, there are some actions we can take to help find a solution and support the AAPI movement. One way to help our Asian community is to speak out if you witness a hate crime. We often see all those videos on social media of a hate crime taking place, but nobody intervenes or helps the person being attacked. If you feel that it is unsafe to intervene, you should at least call 911 immediately. This increases the chance of the attacker being prosecuted and taken off the streets. The step you can take towards finding a solution is to advocate for awareness. Spread awareness at home, work, and school wherever you can. The biggest problem of racism is that nobody speaks up. If we educate people on what is going on with Asian hate, we can hopefully prevent others from having anti-Asian beliefs. Another action we can take that could possibly make a big impact is to reach out to elected officials. There are already some organizations taking place to help Asian communities. One organization is Sao's organization, and he has created a petition that requests elected officials to focus on the needs of affected communities, tackle systematic racism, and to address the needs of survivors. Even though we can't abolish racism, we can definitely make a difference and help Asian communities. Remember to speak up if you witness a hate crime and call the police. That way we can ensure that the attacker gets prosecuted. Lastly, contact elected officials for help to make a difference. Sign petitions and donate to the cause if you are able to. Anything helps. First, I talked about a few of the many attacks on Asian Americans. Second, I talked about the cause of these recent hate crimes. And lastly, I talked about what actions we can take to find a solution on racism and help our fellow Asian community. Now is the time for our generation to fight back against racism and spread awareness on equality for all. We must speak up against racial prejudice and biases in hopes for a better and safer future. If you are somebody who has experienced biased judgments, I hope that we can one day make a difference for you and others. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Jackie. Name one NBA player. And now name one WNBA player. When I tend to ask this question, a lot of people tend to hesitate. The WNBA is not as covered by social media, by people, by on social media as well, compared to NBA players and NBA games. Females in any industry, company, and business should be given the same treatment, idealization, and salary as any male. I will begin talking about professional basketball and the fact that male athletes get paid significantly more than female athletes. Recently, I was looking around to see salaries between WNBA players, and I kept refreshing the page because to me it didn't make any sense. So I'll go ahead and start with the NBA salary, and the current max is $38 million, while the minimum is $582,000. And the minimum for NBA players is so far from the max of WNBA players getting paid every year, which is actually $215,000, and minimum being $117,000. A lot of people ask, why is this even a question? Why, it's not fair, and it's true, it's not fair. Unfortunately, the only things that we can do as people, as viewers, is to help encourage more views on WNBA and women's sports, asking our TV providers to change times and stop scheduling women's games at random times that people aren't home during the day. At like 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning when no one's watching TV is the only time that they're streaming these shows. And then for college basketball for women, I feel like it's so much harder for women to get recognized in college and for them to go on to being professionals. Although in 1972 colleges did enact Title IX, and this states no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, should be excluded from participation in, be denied of the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. And all colleges do receive good chunks of financial assistance, especially for their sports programs. But you do see now that so much more money is allocated to male sports compared to female sports, and when it comes to either workout gyms. Just recently, I feel like a couple months ago, where both NBA and WNBA players went traveling, and the males did receive much nicer equipment and a gym and hotel and food and all these other services. And these poor women go into a gym and barely have any barbells, any dumbbells. Like, there's nothing for them to work out in. And they had to bring everything for their food. Like, they basically had to take care of themselves while these men were getting treated like kings for them doing the same work. And that's my other point, is not to look at it by gender, but to look at it as work and the time that you put into it. If you're really looking at it from this point, you're seeing that these women are putting either just the same amount of time or more time and practice in their energy and keeping themselves fit and their diet. Just their life revolves around the game, and they don't get the recognition that they deserve. So let's see. So here's the reason why. Like I mentioned before, as much as women work to try to get an even playing field, they just never gain enough credit. And again, media does have a huge role to this problem, simply because I don't want to say hype it up more, but they do. They like to think that women basketball isn't as exciting, or it's not as fun, that girls can't dunk, or like all these superstitions in their head. And as a child, or as kids, you grew up only watching male sports. And I feel like as a kid, that kind of just gets into your head, and growing up, that's the only thing you really focus on. So that's another thing that we as people can work on, is really opening up this door and letting these people, these women, get the appreciation that they deserve. So today I simply outlined what you guys have already known, but just put it into more perspective for you guys. What can be done? Again, just bringing more light into the situation, demanding equality from our TV providers, not willing to pay for regular sports shows if the females aren't going to get the same time, same viewings, demanding equality in our schools and our colleges, just being loud and making sure that our voices are heard. Large statements on social media also are other things we can do in our community. Voting for people in office that are going to listen to us and give us things that we need for our high schools and our schools for both genders. So females in this industry, in any industry, company, and business, should be given the same treatment, idealization, and salary as any male. Being in the year 2021, we should not let gender control the amount of money we can make in our occupation, nor let it set limitations in our lives. If you're a male and you think about your mom, wife, sister, daughter, would you like them to be neglected due to their gender? Thank you.